Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's time for the Brown Sports Bag from the Heart of the Barrens, a weekly local sports machine on ESPN Radio 1230. Alongside John Butler, here's your host, James Brown.
Well, John, the spring has sprung and it has nearly come to an end. We're at the playoff end of the Diamond Sports, but we're also in the season of coaching changes, and some of these different changes of recent are pretty fascinating, and some of the openings, which I put down here for us to talk about, are kind of interesting. So we're actually going to start out with that, mostly because one of your former players and assistant coaches, TJ Thomas, did get the girls' head coaching job at Metcalfe County to replace Josh Hurt over there. As we talked about a couple of weeks ago, I'm sure that's been a life ambition of hers, is to be a basketball coach. And I think she'll do a good job. I mean, I always liked her energy on the bench when she was with you and with Josh over there at Metcalfe County.
Yeah, she's a natural. I've been blessed. Piper's obviously played for me and become a tremendous coach. And TJ is somebody that I always thought would be really, really good because, she was a heady point guard. Mm-hmm. Very successful, obviously, knew how to play and played at Campbellsville. And then she coaches me, and I just – you get a pretty good indication quickly. Not all players make good coaches, but I think especially point guards or guards in particular who have to make a lot of decisions in the game, oftentimes that carries over.
I mean, a good point guard is already a coach on the floor when they're in high school and that kind of thing.
So I'm real happy for her because not only does she get a job that she deserves, she's put her time into it. Being an assistant with me and with Josh and. But she's going to get take over a program that I think is on the upswing.
Yeah,
and that doesn't always happen when you get first.
Usually it's the other way around.
That's correct. So she's familiar with them. They have a lot of really good young players.
Yeah,
and they have some good guards in particular. And I think she'll do quite well coaching those young guards And I'm happy for her. She deserves it, and I think she'll do a good job.
Well, and then meanwhile in the area, that's one coaching vacancy that was filled, and then another one opened up, I think, over the weekend or late last week. Orlando Hayden is out at Warren East. That was a little bit surprising. I don't know, what the situation is and that kind of thing.
I think he was surprised reading about his quotes in the paper.
That's what I took as well. So I don't know the specifics of it and that kind of thing. But talking about a program on the upswing, I thought Warren East looked a lot better last year. I mean, they had a couple of maybe 3 or 4 rough years.
Well, actually 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Orlando's first year was 2 years ago, and they had an actual winning record, and it's been a while since they've had a winning record.
Yeah.
This year they did not have a winning record, but they were competitive in a lot of ways too.
Right.
But you're right. East is in a very difficult district, and East has been a program that has been one of the power. I would think if you look up the region's records of girls basketball, it's going to be Allen, Barron, and East.
Yeah.
Because when Coach Embry was there, and even before Coach Embry, they were really, really good. But when Coach Embry was there, they were state powers too.
Right.
And then when he left, Coach Anderson came in, did a good job as well. Mm-hmm. And then, basically when Bowling Green started to make their move, which is around 2007, 2006, sometime around there, that's when the East really, really went down a lot of ways, and they really, really struggled. And just in the last couple of years, they became more competitive again. They got some of the East turned into softball power in girls.
Yeah, that's right.
And one of the things you give Orlando credit, he got some of those softball kids out, and that's helped them a little bit. They've become a little bit more athletic and so forth.
Yeah, you mentioned Bowling Green. LaVonda Johnson went to Bowling Green from Glasgow and pretty much immediately put them as the team to beat. They were building. District.
Yeah, they were building. I mean, she took another step up, but they had some good young players and Jason, who was there before him, I call him Jason K. Capcello, had done a really nice job with them. In fact, one of his players played at Louisville too, Kim Graham.
Right.
And then when Jason got out, LaVonda came in, and then they even. She went on a big run there.
Yeah, and in that district, kind of what happened was Warren East had been the team to beat for a good stretch of years there between Embry and Anderson. And then Bowling Green became the team to beat, and Warren East was still kind of maybe the second team at that point in time, I think.
That's South Warren.
And then South Warren opened, and then East kind of dropped down near the bottom initially. And the thing is talking about last year, I mean, Hayden had a number of young players that would be back this coming year, and I wonder sometimes if, like, we've talked about this with other programs. I mean, East's fans may suffer from long-term memory, meaning that they remember when they were a powerhouse, and maybe they suspect they still should be, and maybe they're just dissatisfied. I mean, maybe it's the staff. Maybe it's administration. I don't know. Like I said, I don't know the particulars, but maybe they're dissatisfied. Maybe things aren't happening fast enough, or that kind of thing. I don't know, but. Anyway, just on the outside looking in, I thought Orlando Hayden had done a pretty good job getting the program back on track.
It's a good job. It's a good job. Tough district.
Yeah.
And I would argue that our district here is as good, if not, it's right there with them as well. But you've got Bowling Green looks like. The problem with that district is Bowling Green looks like could be a superpower this next 4 years.
Yeah.
What I saw them in the regional tournament, and they gave Barron everything they wanted. They had so many young kids.
Yeah.
And it looked like to me good, young, athletic kids. And they're going to be hard to beat. South Warren is not going to go anywhere.
Right.
They should be really good. So, Warren East, they do have expectations because of where they've been. Softball, sometimes the sports court, if you're good in one, you'll be good in the other one.
Yeah.
They've really, taken to a state level in softball.
Right.
And as long as, they can share some of those kids, East can be competitive because East still has some athletes and things like that. But, I don't know. The insides are out about what happened. But, it'd be a job that's I think it could go either way. To be honest with you, they do have some good young talent, but it's also in a tough district.
Now, some of the interesting positions open around the state that I found. One was being the Butler girls basketball position, because Butler girls basketball is typically one of the best in the state.
Yeah, that guy and Coach Just, I believe. He made some comments that he made it pretty well known that one of the reasons why he got out, of course, I think he's won 2 state titles at Butler. I think he was tired and frustrated with a lot of stuff we've mentioned on here before in the past.
Yeah.
With keeping players, the AAU situation, and transfers and things like that.
Yep.
I think he was legitimately just kind of tired of it, to be honest with you, and he stepped aside. Now, I think the job's been filled.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, the head coach at Murray took the Butler job.
Which brings me to the second one on the list, which is the fact that the Murray position is open. Another one that has been a pretty good place to coach.
Well, they have been in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had 2 Division I players.
Right. I guess so. Maybe that's why he moved on. Then he's like, It's
not a place traditionally that's been great. Small school, but they have been good in a region that doesn't have a lot of depth in the first region, to be honest with you. Marshall County, Murray.
Yeah.
It's Callaway occasionally. So
that probably has a lot to do with it because Murray has been dominant. They've been very good even up to the state level.
Yeah.
But they've been dominant in a region that has not really had just too many just fantastic girls basketball teams.
That's correct.
And then the one that was interesting to me was finding out last week that East Carter fired their girls basketball coach, and fired is the right word because that was what Hager Easterling said in his interview in the newspaper, the Ashland Independent there in Ashland, Kentucky. They were like, "Did you resign?" He goes, "No, I was fired by whatever the principal's name is." He was pretty just on point about the whole situation.
I haven't read that. I need to read that.
It was rather amusing.
And he was 511 and 202.
Yes, in 23 years. He'd been there 23 years.
500 wins. That's
there's never enough wins, John. There's never enough wins.
No, there's a lot of things that can happen, and I don't know the story. I have no idea what's going on, but yeah, there's sometimes A win-loss record is not an issue. And sometimes you can have a losing record and you're safe.
Right.
There's a lot of factors, and I don't know enough about this one, but it seemed like he did not take the route. Thank you for everything you've done, and he didn't do that. I want to spend more time with my family.
No, he did none of that. He said, "I plan on coaching again," is what he said. So, but to that end, that means that he said he plans on coaching again. So we have some openings. I'm sure he probably plans on coaching somewhere in Eastern Kentucky.
He'd love West Carter, probably.
Yeah, I probably love West Carter, as a matter of fact. But when I was looking, I went back. I think he had won the region 3 times in those years, the 23 years. Mm-hmm. And I was looking. And East Carter was not traditionally good at girls basketball.
No, West Carter was the better team.
Yeah, and so you had Boyd County, which was good. Ashland was good. West Carter was good. I think even Russell maybe was good at times.
Yeah, West Carter won a state title.
Yeah, so I was looking over that region. I'm like, that's actually a pretty tough girls basketball region. To get 511 wins in, and then be unceremoniously dismissed from your position. I was like, man, they must think he should be winning a state championship every year. But anyway, there's a good coach apparently on the market for anybody who's looking for one, and he's looking to work. And then this one I found funny. The Elizabethtown baseball position is open.
First-year guy got fired in the middle of the year.
Yeah, so here the
and the old coach came back.
Yeah, the district tournament is going on, and they've got a fill-in at the moment.
Who's the former coach?
Right. So and Elizabethtown's baseball team, I think they're typically a pretty good baseball team, but they have struggled this year.
Yes, they were a 5th region power for years, and then Central Arden came along and kind of wrestled that away from them, but they were still considered one of the better programs.
Yeah, and actually this year North Arden is pretty good at baseball, so I would think that would be a pretty good job for somebody who's looking for a baseball job out there. And then, of course, the Greenwood boys basketball position is open. Bob Pell's retired. He was retired from another state and had been at Greenwood 3 years, I think, coaching.
Right.
And he was a lot of fun to talk to. I thought he was
an interesting guy. I thought he did a good job.
I did, too. I enjoyed watching Greenwood play, and truth be told, Greenwood really could have beaten Warren Central. Warren Central have not made it to the state tournament.
Any of the last 3 years.
Yeah.
They were close games, and whether they played Bowling Green or Central, it was the one non Bowling Green Warren Central team in their district that gave them fits, and there's always Greenwood. South Warren didn't bother them. Warren East never really has come close to them in the last 10 years. Greenwood, because they always played a style of play that was difficult for Central and Bowling Green.
Yeah, so it was a lot of fun to watch them. If you like kind of, I guess, old school basketball, but actually, his big guys would shoot from outside, so it wasn't old school like just post up and dump it inside. It was that too, but his big guys would shoot with range. He would let his guards, do a lot of stuff, and
he did a good job. It's another difficult job.
It's a lot like the Warren East girls' job. It's kind of a no-win situation in a lot of ways.
It's a couple of things. Number one, it's probably the toughest job. I always say the toughest basketball jobs around here is just being a 4th region basketball coach, not other than Bowling Green or Central. Mm-hmm. And if your dream is go to the region, that door has been slammed shut against you for almost 15 years.
Yeah,
it's Bowling Green or Central.
Yep.
The tougher job than that is a boys basketball job in their district.
Yeah.
Because you only get to the region.
Right.
And plus you have to play 8 district games. Four of those are against Bowling Green and Central.
Yeah.
And that's even when you think you have a shot. Mm-hmm. Let's just be honest. Central had a different team that you thought they were going to have this past year.
Yes,
it's just true.
It is, yes.
And Bowling Green has brought in, some
They've
players.
Had a different team than you would expect them to have on occasions.
2 of their most high-profile players. One came from Cincinnati, Shane Bohannon, and the other one came from Tennessee, which was
Zion
Harmon.
Yep.
So, you're kind of up against it in that district and in this region in a lot of ways, and I'm sure that's frustrating for a lot of coaches.
One other position that I did not put down here that I thought was interesting was the basketball assigning secretary in the 5th region.
That's is that open again?
Yes,
okay.
It is apparently.
It's been filled by Well, now I've gone blank. Guy that has was a referee for years.
Yeah.
But he calls a lot of college games.
Uh-huh.
Now I've gone blank. I'll think of it when we take a break. But anyway,
yeah.
I did not know that was open again.
Yeah. So, I mean, that must be after we had Larry Hammer on a couple of months ago talking about the situation
He'd be a good
of
one.
officials. Yeah,
if he wants to, but you can't do both. That's the problem. Because
right.
part of your job as a signing secretary is evaluating too.
Right.
But I know he's really good with helping young officials and things like that. I don't know if Larry's interested, but he would be a good one.
Yeah, but going back to that discussion with Larry about the role of the assigning secretary also being the evaluator and that kind of thing, it's got to be very time consuming and thankless and challenging in a lot of ways, especially because you're having to find officials these days.
Troy Winder.
That's right.
Troy Winder.
And I mean, you're trying to find people these days to even do the games. I mean, and you can't, as you pointed out, you can't actually go out and call the game. So it's not like you can just slide into a vacant slot and fill it up. You got to find somebody to fill it.
Speaking of that, the KSWSA issued at their last board meeting. Mm-hmm. Issued a new rule that goes along with what we've been talking about in the past, where it now gives schools the option of if they kick a non-player or coach out, a spectator, an adult spectator, that spectator can also be suspended from coming back to any varsity or any type of activity for up to, it starts with one game, but it gives schools the option to even go beyond that.
I think that's good because, I mean, if your whole role for showing up at the game is to yell and scream at people, then you're not there for the right reasons to start with. I mean, you just come root for your team or whatever.
And I don't buy that because I pay $5. I can come in and say whatever I want to.
Yeah, I mean, I'll give you $5 to stay outside the building
or to be quiet.
Yeah, whichever. I mean, that should be it.
Yeah.
Instead of you paying them, they're like, you just keep the money and sit over there and shut up, please.
Yeah. I mean, there's almost, when you pay that money, it's not a license to say whatever you want to say.
Yeah.
And I think the KSWSA is making the right statement.
Yeah, I do too. I think that's a great way to go about it.
Maybe we can get more referees if they feel safer and don't feel like they're abused every time they call a game.
Well, I mean, and Larry's not the only person who's mentioned this to us. I mean, over the years, we've had a number of people mention, the reason they don't do officiating is it's just not worth their time to do all that. I mean, it's to go through all the training, everything, and then just get yelled and screamed at. I mean, you're not there to affect the game in any way. You're just there to do your job.
Right.
And that's not fun. After a while, you're like, why don't I just stay home and watch TV or go golf or do something else?
I mean, the money's nice, but after a while, it's not worth it.
Yep. Well, this is Brown Sports Bag, brought to you by McDonald's of Glasgow. We'll be right back to talk about some district tournaments.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag on ESPN Radio 1230.
Well, John, today is the official first day of the postseason for us. Some districts around the state got started yesterday, which I've never seen that before.
Some on Saturday.
Yeah, I've never seen that before.
I ain't either.
So that's a new one. And then, excuse me. So we've got the...
So we got the district tonight as James is about to strangle to death. I think we'll continue the show. But the district tonight starts at 6 o'clock. Allen County, the number 1 seed, versus Monroe County at 6. Even though Monroe has the better record, I think they're 13-11. Allen 11-16. Allen is the number 1 seed. So that goes on at 9. Of course, because of Barron's graduation tonight, there will be no softball until tomorrow.
Yeah, you shouldn't drink while on air. But anyway, so I think that the first game, Allen County and Monroe tonight in the baseball matchup.
Allen's got a really good pitcher.
Yeah,
they're 11-16 and not a winning record, but their number 1 guy is pretty good. So even though Monroe's record is better, you got to think Allen is still the favorite tonight.
Yeah, I mean, ironically, Monroe has 2 district wins, both against Glasgow in slugfests, which really kind of, I mean, Glasgow looked like they were in cruise control to get the number 1 seed, and then they had the 2 games against Monroe, which knocked them off course. And I guess you just have to wonder, I mean, what Monroe County team is going to show up But Allen did play pretty well down the stretch. I mean, even despite their record, I mean, they actually had a pretty decent finish to the season. Played pretty well. And like you said, I would guess you would have to figure they'd be the favorite to win that game. And then, let's get into this baseball game tomorrow between Barron and Glasgow because...
Which will be on the radio.
Yes, which will be on the radio. It'll be on this station, as a matter of fact.
Jay Turner, Lee McFarland.
Yep. So we'll have that call.
5:50 on there.
Yep. Very good. And I just don't know. Glasgow won the 2 regular season meetings, but you want to talk about a contrast of styles, or at least how they win their games. I mean, Barron wins through pitching and defense, and Glasgow knocks the, stitches off the ball is how they win their games, as far as I can tell.
Seems like it, and it is a complete contrast. Glasgow's 15-15, coming off kind of struggled down the stretch. They played better last week, though. They ended the season with a good win against South Warren. Mm-hmm. So they're 15-15. Barron 11-16. Barron won their last 3. Got a good win Saturday against Warren East, 4-3. So it is it's a tricky game for both. Glasgow's strength is their hitting, and they've got several kids that got some pop. Mm-hmm. Barron's strength is their pitching, and Justin Combs will have the ball tomorrow. He pitched last Wednesday, so he's going to be on his full 5 days rest, and so it'll be. And Justin's had a really good year, to be honest with you, and so it'll be. Now the good news for Glasgow, they faced Justin before.
Yeah.
But it's be Combs versus probably either Jaden Wells or Tyler Lane.
Yeah, I mean,
one of the two, I'm guessing, for Glasgow.
Yeah, I mean, I think Tyler Lane. I would guess he would be the starter. He's a left-handed kid. Maybe mix some things up that way. I just don't.
It's generally Glasgow has gone by committee.
Yeah.
I mean, whoever started that, they've got. The other pitcher that if they need, they've got Franklin, Kirkpatrick can pitch, so they got some other people to go to. With the good news with Barron is not only do they have Justin, but they also have the 2 guys they were counting on as well is back. Mason Gillen pitched Saturday, and he's ready to go. And if they need him in relief, and Merrick Coulter is also back from a knee injury, so Barron is getting healthy. But they're going to obviously need a big effort from Justin Combs. It just doesn't look like, if you just go by how Barron's played all year, they're not going to score a lot.
Yeah.
If you give Combs 3 or 4, they got a shot.
Well, and to me, that the game that he pitched against Logan County is kind of indicative of how good he is. They lost the game 1-0.
Struck out 12.
12 strikeouts. He went the distance in that game, which he's not done. I mean. And I don't know if it's pitch count or whatever through the course of the season, but he's not finished a bunch of games this year. But he went the distance, and if he can get in 6 innings or 7 innings, especially, then that gives Barron a fighting chance in any game. Obviously,
it does. And the thing about having a really good pitcher going into a baseball game that gives, I think, it always gives your team confidence. At least I remember that when I played. If I knew we had a really good pitcher going, the confidence means we're going to be in this game.
Yeah.
And Justin, any of those pitchers I named would give them confidence. But Justin's been proven for his career, has been there all this year.
Yep.
And so Barron legitimately thinks they have a real good shot. Plus, they're the back-to-back defending district champions too.
Right.
A lot of the same kids. Not all of them. They're all some key players. But Justin has pitched in big games, and Mason Gillen has, and their young infield all started last year. So they won't be intimidated. And but Glasgow also had beaten Barron twice, 2-0, and I'm sure they're not. I think both teams respect each other, and I think most people view this as toss up. Maybe Glasgow a slight favorite because they've had those 2 wins.
Yeah. Well, it'll be an interesting game. I really do believe it will be an interesting game for people to see, or if they need to listen to here. On ESPN 1230 AM. We'll have the stream running, so you should be able to pick that up as well. If you go to ESPNKY.com, under the broadcast menu, you can select WCDS, and we'll have the stream running for it. So if you can't be near a radio or you're outside the range of the station, you can hear it on your phone or on your computer, that kind of thing. So there's no excuses. You don't have to miss a game at all, no matter what. Meanwhile, the softball, as you mentioned, both games are tomorrow. And that first game is Barron County versus Glasgow, which is the 1-4 slot at 5:30. And I would say that, the interesting thing about Glasgow is Amanda Lee, the catcher, is first-team all-region player. And you look at her stats, and it's first-team all-region player stats.
Yeah. Hitting .444.
Yeah, she's had a great year. And Glasgow has actually scored runs pretty well during the course of the year, but, man, they have struggled defensively. And it's Taylor Murphy in the circle. She doesn't strike people out, but she apparently does a fair job. It's just that they have a hard time getting the outs during the course of a game, and they've lost a number of games by 1 run. They've lost a number of games where they've given up some runs in bunches and that kind of stuff, and that's been their struggle, really.
Well, yeah, and it's you never know when you play these games, and but Barron has by far, other than East, has probably had the best season of any team. They're 29-4, and I don't think you could have convinced anybody before the year that to be 29-4.
Yeah,
and they've got Hayden Sutherland was first team all region. I think she's hitting .480, and Mallory Pettigo, Maddie Hagan, 2 other seniors have had fabulous years.
Yeah,
Barron's got speed. They've got some pop in their bat with power, and they got this freshman pitcher Lily Brody that I just don't think people knew enough about, and she really improved from last year. She's her ERA's under 2.
Yeah,
and she has 194 strikeouts and only 34 walks.
Yeah,
and that's pretty impressive.
Yeah,
and,
not a bad year.
No, so Glasgow will have to play extremely well.
Mm-hmm.
The big thing with Glasgow is that they're going to have to contain Barron's hitters because Barron puts a lot of pressure. Barron didn't strike out a lot. And so I think the big thing is, and Glasgow doesn't strike out people very much.
Yeah.
So I think the big key with Glasgow is they're going to score some, but they cannot give Barron unearned runs.
Yeah.
Because if you give Barron a few unearned runs, it can really, really get ugly quickly.
Yeah, I would say that's right. That they 100% have to get every out.
They got to make defensive plays because Barron's not going to strike out much.
Yeah. And then in the second game, it's Allen County and Monroe County. Pickerel's had a good year in the circle for Monroe County.
They're 18-13, and Allen's 11-22-1.
Yeah, never imagined you would see those two standings like that, right? 2 records like that. But I would still say, just traditionally speaking, you would still have to feel like Allen County's the team to beat of those two, just because, as we talked about before, if you have a history of winning, sometimes that is a benefit in these kind of situations.
And they played a tougher schedule.
Yeah,
they have. The schedule of Allen has been tougher than Monroe. To be quite frank with you, Allen is still, even though they don't have near the talent as they've had in the past, they have still played a better than average schedule.
Yeah.
So I would think Allen is a slight favorite, but Monroe, clearly have a legitimate chance of upsetting Allen. But I still think it'd be an upset, especially at Allen.
Yeah, that's right.
And the good news is, if you go over there Tuesday, you can watch both games.
Yeah, you just stand on the hill.
That's exactly right. And you got a great view of both over there. The fields, the softball and baseball field, are right next to each other.
Yeah, and then both championship games for the baseball and the softball will be at 6:00 on Wednesday night. If Barron County is in the championship game for softball, we will carry that game right here. So. With Jay Turner and I think Lee McFarland on that one too.
That's correct.
So, again, if you can't be there, try to get there, obviously. You don't want to miss it. But if you can't be there, you get a good chance to hear those games right here. And then I think 14th District gets started today with a couple of games, and then the 16th District Baseball starts today. 16th District Softball, I think, starts tomorrow. So those are the ones kind of getting ready as for the 4th Region tournaments, which will swing into action on Memorial Day next Monday. It's always a great day full of baseball and softball over at WKU on Memorial Day.
Yep, so, long tradition, playing Memorial Day.
Yep. Well, this is Brown Sports Bag brought to you by McDonald's of Glasgow. We'll be right back to talk about some horse racing and some golf.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag on ESPN Radio 1230.
Well, John, Brooks Koepka won the PGA Championship. I think it's the second year in a row he's won it. He may be the first player ever to win the PGA back-to-back years. And he was dominant out of the gate. And then Sunday looked like he was going to have a meltdown and lose the thing, and managed to hold on and get it.
He's won 4 out of the last 8 majors.
Yeah, he's pretty good.
Yeah, 20. What is he? 26, 27.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's kind of getting that he's Tiger-esque in a lot of ways. How he's kind of dominating play right now, and that was he dominated the PGA. It got a little uncomfortable late, but nobody was playing well Sunday. I mean, the wind was 20, 25 miles per hour, but that was a Tiger-like dominant wire-to-wire performance.
Yeah, because he shot a 63 on the first day, and then he was just that dominant all the way through the next 3 days.
Yeah,
until Sunday afternoon.
He made it boring, to be perfectly honest with you, because and I mean, he's supremely confident too. He said some things in his press conference before the tournament that was, he's a quiet guy, so he was being honest, and I don't fault him for being honest. And they asked him about how confident he is. He was, and he said he was very confident. He said there's 150 golfers, and he said 75 of them can't win.
Yeah.
He said there's just no chance they're going to win. And he said they don't expect to win. So he said now you're down to 75.
Yeah.
And he said half of them won't play well. So he said now you're down to 30.
Yeah.
And he said I know I'm going to play well.
In some corners of the universe, people would have taken it that he was stunting on them, but then after he shot a 63, he really was.
Yeah, no, I think
he was. He was Serena Williams, crip walking at the Wimbledon and all that kind of stuff after day one. I mean, for all intents and purposes.
He does have a confidence about it. I'm not saying he's cocky. He's very confident. Of course, he's he looks like a weightlifter out there. He's a huge guy, and he's extremely strong, fit, obviously. And he says that once he's on the golf course, it's all golf. But once he's away, he didn't even think about it.
Yeah,
doesn't even think. He said, "I don't watch golf. I don't think about it." But he says, once I'm on the golf course, I'm laser focused on. He said the next shot. He said stress, pressure doesn't bother him.
Yeah,
and
he does seem to have a very good approach to the game at the moment.
He does. I like his pace too.
Yeah,
he doesn't sit there and take 15 minutes between. He goes to the next one, looks at it, and hits it. And I do kind of like that part.
Yeah, there are lots of things to like about his game and his approach to the game, because he does have a very different approach to the game than most other golfers, and I don't just mean the pace, but just his mentality toward majors and that kind of stuff. Because part of that press conference was, he said it's easier to win majors than it is to win everyday golf tournaments. And breaking down the numbers and everything, he wasn't being boastful or whatever. It was just in the numbers that he looked at it that way.
Yep.
Which I thought was pretty interesting. There was no. It wasn't like he was humble bragging. It was like he has done the math and decided that's the case.
And he's put the work in too.
Yeah, which was the part that I thought was pretty good. And it just sounds a certain way coming out of a golfer's mouth versus, maybe a boxer or whatever.
Yeah, because if you just look at it that, in golf, the one thing about golf is you can't play defense.
Yeah.
You can't control what somebody else shoots.
Right.
So, a lot of golf's completely out of your hands.
Yeah.
You can go out there and just play the course, but, you can't help if somebody else shoots 20 under and you can't, guard them.
Right.
But he also knows that he's really good in most of his competition in majors is just not good enough to put up those numbers, or didn't expect to put up the numbers, or pressure's going to bother them. So he's kind of got most of them eliminated. So so he didn't see 150; he sees 30.
Yeah, he scratched all these other guys off.
That's right.
Meanwhile, the Preakness was Saturday, and to be honest with you, I didn't even realize it until late last night that the Preakness had even happened Saturday.
Well, it's 2 weeks after the Derby for the last 140 years.
Well, we've already discussed my interest in horse racing is very thin, so that has a lot to do with why I didn't. The reason, because that's what kind of happened is I'm like, wait, the Derby was 2 weeks ago, so the Preakness happened.
And Belmont's going to be 3 weeks.
Yeah, okay. So the math that's why it registered with me, but it didn't register prior to the race. So then I went and looked it up, and then there was a jockeyless horse in the race, which was entertaining to me, mostly because the jockey was okay when he got thrown off the horse right out of the gate. And then the winner of the Preakness was one of the horses, the main horse that got cut off in the Kentucky Derby, War of Will. And that kind of changed my whole view on the Kentucky Derby, not the elimination of the winner and that kind of stuff, but the fact that this horse may have been in line to, for a Triple Crown if the things had gone differently.
Absolutely.
At the Derby.
I think it even gives more weight to the steward's decision 2 weeks ago to disqualify Maximum Security.
Yeah.
I mean, War of Will. One of the key complaints that the naysayers were making is that War of Will, who finished 8th, had no shot at winning. The best horse. The argument was that Maximum Security was the best horse. Best horse should have won. Well, he was the one that basically eliminated War of Wills in the turn.
Yeah.
And I was telling you off air, go run at the track and cut somebody off in the turn coming home and see if that person can come back and beat you. You really can't.
Right.
And War of Wills just kind of proved to the world, that maybe that horse was could have been the best horse. He didn't really have a fair shot in the Derby, and he won fairly easy in the Preakness.
Yeah, I mean, so for those who are like, well, they need to reinstate Maximum Security as the Kentucky Derby rightful winner.
That's not going to happen.
This is further proof that this is not necessarily true.
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, there's the empirical data that he crossed the finish line first, but we don't know if he would have beaten War of Will. I mean, we don't.
No, especially when he about knocked him down.
Yeah, so I mean, it as they say, everything has a ripple effect. I mean, just because you can definitively see something doesn't mean that's definitively how it would have turned out if everything had been different.
And I'm kind of into karma, and it just seemed like to me karma. War of Will deserved because part of what happened since we even talked on the Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday after the Kentucky Derby is that the owners of Maximum Security, the disqualified horse, has not only sued, but they came out and actually was talking about it was the jockey of War of Wills who's the one that caused all the problems. And nobody in their right mind can watch the film and see that. I mean, you're just. It's kind of like politics on some of the things that people in politics are saying. Where you go, what? Where'd that come from?
Right. And
it was almost karma that War of Wills would kind of come back and win.
Yeah.
And be honest with you, kind of karma that Maximum Security that would happen to Maximum Security. That hey, if you're going to keep bad mouthing the jockey that you about killed, I was kind of glad that jockey and horse came back and won the next leg. Well, Maximum Security set that race out.
Yeah,
he could have gone to the Preakness and run.
Yeah, I mean that whole situation with the Maximum Security folks is basically temper tantrum at this point.
I think so. I mean, they could have run.
Yeah,
come
back and prove it.
Prove it. That's exactly right.
And by the way, War Will's owner said that they will run in the Belmont. So I mean, they win there. I mean, they win 2 of 3 out of the 3 legs race of the race there, and
pretty good. Mm-hmm.
Changes history a little bit. Yep. Changes perspective, I think, quite a bit.
And Maximum Security's not.
No,
not going to run in Belmont either.
He's retired.
No, he's not retired.
I'm saying,
for
all intents and purposes, he's retired. He's retired from the 3 races we care about.
Well, from the non-horse racing enthusiasts.
Yeah, that's we.
That's right.
Oh, I'm sorry, me.
That's you.
My bad. Well, this is Brown Sports Bag, brought to you by McDonald's of Glasgow. We'll be right back.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag on ESPN Radio 1230.
Well, college baseball conference tournaments start this week. First of all, the WKU Hilltoppers did manage to make the Conference USA tournament. They're the number 4 seed.
They slugged their way.
Yeah, they literally did, because the pitching, despite the fact that we do have a local kid, Dalton Shoemake, who pitches for the Hilltoppers, overall their pitching has not been the thing that's been getting them wins this year. It's been the bats.
Well, they lost a 12-5 lead in the 9th Saturday to Old Dominion.
Yes.
And if they'd have won that game, you normally win when you're up 7 in the 9th, they'd have been a 3 seed.
Yeah. And it looked like they had the 3 seed locked up, and then they lost 2 of 3 to Old Dominion, and the 7
or 9 the last inning.
Yeah. And so that kind of bumped them down, and the prize they got was to turn around and play Old Dominion again.
Well, that's not bad. If you're good enough to be up 7 in the 9th, you're good enough to beat them.
Old Dominion looks at it, if you're good enough to overcome a 7-run deficit in the 9th, you're good enough to beat them again,
true.
too.
I just don't think it happens very often.
No, it doesn't. But the Hilltoppers, they're just below 500 overall record.
They've been better in their conference than out of conference.
Yeah, I think they're 13-9 in conference, and
have not qualified. Now, not everybody qualifies in Conference USA. In fact, Western has not qualified the last 2 years. So this was an improved year for them.
Yeah, this is the first year, I think, under Pawlowski that they've made the Conference USA tournament. I think this is his third year.
Yeah.
And again, I mean, now Jake Sanford, talking about slugging.
He's been fantastic.
Yeah, he's one of the best hitters in the nation.
Yes, hitting over 400, 20 home runs. He's fantastic.
Yeah. And, I mean, he's hit a bunch of clutch ones for him during the course of the season as well.
Is he I don't know if he's a sophomore or a junior. I've gone blank. But if he's a junior, he's probably going to get drafted after this year.
Yeah. So that's where they stand. I think they play at I wrote it down this morning, and now I don't remember what it was. But anyway, play I think at 7:30 on Wednesday against Old Dominion, and we will have that game, I believe, here after the district tournament games, after district tournament championship.
Randy Lee
on the call. To be honest with you, I enjoy his baseball calls.
He's good
more than anything.
He's very good on the air baseball. I agree.
And then, meanwhile, the Louisville Cardinals are their 7th consecutive year of 40 wins in baseball.
It's best in the country over the last 7 years.
Yeah.
They have more wins than anybody.
Yep, and so they've had an impressive run, an impressive year again.
They are fighting. They're definitely going to, it's ACC tournament this week, and they're definitely going to host a region the following week.
Yeah.
They need to be in the top 8. If they're in the top 8, if they win their region, they'll host the super region. And they're awfully hard to beat there in Louisville.
Yeah, so I mean the Cardinals are the shining light of college baseball in the state of Kentucky when you get down to it. Kentucky has been pretty good, but they're not as good this year as they have been. And the SEC, I mean, the ACC and the SEC are both very tough conferences.
It is. Kentucky is a little bit down. They lost a lot of players from last year. They did beat the number 1 team in the nation one game this weekend. They did beat Vanderbilt.
Right. And that goes back to what I was about to say. The SEC is probably better top to bottom in college baseball than, say, the ACC maybe. But
I think that's fair.
But because, I mean, what are there, like 5, I think, SEC teams in the top 25 right now?
Right.
And so it's going to be – that'll be an interesting conference tournament. It always is. The SEC tournament is always very interesting if you like college baseball, because you will have some wild results in those games. Pretty entertaining games a lot of times. Meanwhile, the college softball is basically 2 weeks ahead of where college baseball is. So they just wrapped up their regionals. They did their conference tournaments 2 weeks ago. And I think we mentioned that WKU had a good year in softball, and then had a disappointing first-round loss in the conference tournament.
They lost 2 straight, didn't they?
Yeah.
Or is it
it's
just
a single
one?
elimination. Yep. And I think the final was 3-2 or something like that. It was a heartbreaking loss.
And they did not get an invitation to the NCAA.
Nope, not at all. I think Conference USA softball is not widely regarded, maybe.
I think that's fair to say.
But again, meanwhile, though, Kentucky's softball team has been outstanding this year. I think they're one of the top scoring teams in the nation.
We got one of the best
top hitting teams in the nation.
We got one of the best hitters and shortstop. They got a shortstop that's out of this world. I think her last name is Reed. And they got a third baseman that can just flat mash it. Yeah, they've got a really, really good team. They won their region easily. And so now they're in the final 16, and they play. I can't remember who they play. I should, but they'll have to go on the road. But it's 2 out of 3 to get to the College World Series, and they got a legitimate shot.
Yeah, they're one of the better teams this year, and I think it's the usual suspects again.
Louisville lost a tough one last night. They got beat back to back. They won their first 2, and Northwestern, which was the number 1 seed in that region, and the host beat them back to back last night, and the last game was 4-3, and tough loss because it's the first year coach at Louisville. But Louisville has been a program kind of on the fringe, but this was a big move up. They've never made it to the super region, so that was a tough loss for them last night.
Meanwhile, let's switch gears a little bit. Because tonight on this station at 7 o'clock, we will have the Game 4 of the Western Conference Finals between the Golden State Warriors and the Portland Trailblazers. I think that series is over with, even though they have a game left. the poor Portland Trailblazers, I mean, they did everything they could in Game 3 and still managed to lose. And this is with the Warriors without Kevin Durant, which kind of begs the question. I mean, the Warriors may be better. Now, they're better as a team, I think, without Kevin Durant, because I think sometimes when you have a great player like that, you see the safety net issue where you just expect them to take over at some point in time, and then you watch them play.
It sure looks like that. I mean, I like watching this Warriors team without Durant better than the one with Durant. For some reason, they move the ball better. Draymond Green is playing unbelievable.
Yeah, he looks like Draymond Green from 2 years ago.
He had a confession the other day where he kind of confessed that, I don't know if he got advice from his mother or grandmother or something. He kind of confessed that he had been doing too much complaining and not enough playing. And he has been unbelievably good.
Yeah.
And Golden State, when they don't complain, and they haven't been complaining lately, they're a fun team to watch.
Yeah,
they got into, they got to a point where I just didn't like watching them because of how Draymond Green was acting. Kevin Durant is never fun, to be honest with you. He seems like he's always sour.
He's the most miserable person to be like one of the greatest basketball players you've seen.
He seems to be that way. But can they win it without him? Well, a lot of people say no, they're going to have him to win. I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say that the team is not. He's like, if he's not the best player in the world, he's top 3 in the world.
Yeah.
And generally, when you got, he makes anybody better. But they do seem like to have a more flow, and Steve Kerr has been, now maybe it's just the matchup of Portland, I don't know. But has been using his bench a lot more without that. It's hard to tell. It's kind of hard to make the comment they're better, but they sure seem to be playing a little bit more together without him.
I think you can say they look like a better team offensively without him. In the grand scheme of things, though, I think the key that he provides is 2 parts. One is he can bail you out of a tough situation, and his defense is pretty critical.
Well, he's 7 foot and long and can guard anybody.
Yeah, and so they get through Portland. Portland doesn't have anybody that can challenge Golden State without him.
All right.
They get through Portland. Let's say they play Milwaukee. That's a whole different ball of wax. Yeah. Because you got guys who can shoot the ball all over the floor, and they're all big guys.
But, the guards of Portland are really good.
Yeah.
I mean, big time. And not much difference. I still, the Golden State guards are better. Klay Thompson and Curry are still a little bit better. The difference is Draymond Green. You put Draymond Green on Portland, I think you got a different situation.
Oh, yeah.
His energy level is his toughness, his rebounding, his passing.
Yeah.
Portland doesn't have anybody close to that.
No,
the guards kind of match up pretty well together, but the difference in the series, I think, is Draymond Green. And I'm glad he's shut his mouth and playing.
Yeah, because I enjoy watching him as a player.
I do too.
When he's playing.
And
but now on the Eastern Conference side, I know we don't have that game on air tonight. That they'll play again tomorrow night.
Tomorrow, right?
It's 2-1. Milwaukee, Toronto basically had to go the extra
double overtime.
Yeah, double overtime to finally get a win on their own court.
But Milwauke's better.
Yeah, they just are.
They are. I mean, Leonard is, Leonard and the Greek Freak kind of cancel each other out. But Milwaukee's other players are better than Toronto's.
Yeah,
and it may go to 6. I think it's probably closer to 5 games,
right,
in my opinion. I just think Milwaukee is overall just a better team.
I would say Toronto and Portland are very similar in the sense that
that'd be a good matchup.
It would be a fun matchup because I do like Damian Lillard and I do like Kawhi Leonard. The difference is this: Kawhi Leonard seems to do what he does every game.
Yeah.
Damian Lillard and C.J. McCullough kind of go back and forth. McCollum,
they rarely have
on hot.
Yeah, they don't have a lot of good playoff games together.
Right. But the bad thing for mentioning Toronto, you have Pascal Siakam, who, by the way, is the brother to Boris Siakam, who played at Caverna and Western Kentucky University.
Yep.
He's maybe the third or second best player on Toronto's team, but sometimes he just does not have great games or even good games.
He's young.
Yeah. You have Eric Bledsoe from Kentucky.
Yeah.
Same thing there. So, I think we're going to see a Warriors-Bucks finals, and I think it'll actually be a fun one to watch.
I hope so.
Yep. It's Brown Sports Bag brought to you by McDonald's of Glasgow. We'll be back next week at 4.
Thanks for listening, and be sure and join James and John once again next Monday at 4 for the Brown Sports Bag, a local weekly sports machine presented by McDonald's of Glasgow.
This is WCDS Glasgow, ESPN Radio 1230, your total sports leader.